Hello and welcome. Today we are opening up the global pantry for a really meticulous look at the world of fruit spreads. And we're going way beyond what you might put on your morning toast. We're going to explore this whole universe of textures, flavors, and history, all preserved right there in a jar. Okay, let's get into it. So we've all stood in that grocery aisle, right? Staring at the shelves wondering, what is the real difference between jam and jelly? But what if I told you that's just the tip of the iceberg? I'm talking at least 22 distinct categories, and every single one has its own story and its own science. Today, we're going to unpack all of it, the key families, the principles that defined every single one. All right, to make sense of this whole world, we've organized our little tour into 6 sections. We'll kick things off with the fundamentals, then hit the classics. After that, we'll move through the creamy stuff, the savory and spicy options, some really cool ancient and modern spreads, and we'll finish up with the liquids. It's going to be a full curriculum, but we'll get it done fast. Okay, Section 1. Look, before we can even start talking about the differences, we need a framework, a way to think about this stuff. And it turns out that every single fruit spread in the entire world can be defined by just a handful of key variables. And here they are. It really all comes down to 3 things. 1. What form is the fruit in? Are we talking whole, crushed, or just the juice? 2. What's the final texture going to be? Is it chunky, smooth, or even sliceable? And 3. How is it preserved? What's stopping it from going bad? Sugar, vinegar, oil, or something else entirely? Just keep these 3 principles in your head, and I promise you'll be able to categorize anything we talk about today.
All right, let's move on and see how this framework actually works with the classics. This is where we are finally going to settle that age-old debate and bring some much-needed clarity to those jars you probably have in your fridge right now.
So here it is, the fundamental difference you've been waiting for. Jam is made with crushed or chopped fruit. That's why you get those nice little bits in there. The name itself actually comes from the verb to squeeze. Now, jelly, on the other hand, is made only with strained fruit juice. No pieces, no pulp, just a clear, smooth gel. It's a technique that was actually perfected way back in medieval monasteries. Ready to level up? Okay, so preserves take things a step further than jam. They use whole or really large pieces of fruit, so you can literally see and identify what you're eating. The trick here is a super high sugar concentration. We're talking 65 to 68% to keep that fruit structure from falling apart. And marmalade? Well, that's a very specific type of citrus preserve that absolutely must include the peel, which gives it that classic bitter edge. And this process just goes to show you the meticulous craft involved. Proper marmalade is not something you just whip up in an afternoon. Traditionally, it takes 3 full days. Day 1 is just for softening the peel. Day 2 is all about extracting that natural pectin. And finally, on day 3, you cook it all down to get that perfect gelled set with the peel suspended just right. Okay, moving right along to Section 3. We're leaving the world of pectin-set gels behind and entering a category that's all about rich, smooth, and honestly, pretty decadent textures. And it's all thanks to some really surprising ingredients.
First up, we have curd. And let me be clear, this is not a jam. A curd is basically a fruit custard. The defining ingredients here are eggs and butter, which get cooked down with fruit juice. And the technique, oh man, the technique is everything. You have to stir it constantly over really gentle heat, because if you don't, you're not getting a silky curd, you're getting sweet, scrambled eggs.
And then there's fruit butter. But don't let the name fool you. There's absolutely no dairy in here. The butter part just refers to its incredibly smooth, thick consistency. And you get that by slow cooking fruit puree for hours and hours and hours until the fruit's own sugars concentrate into this deep, rich, spreadable paste. It's a technique famously used by the Pennsylvania Dutch settlers.
And if you think that sounds like a long time, get this. Some traditional Latin American dulces, which are these thick preserves made by cooking fruit with milk, can take upwards of 6 hours of constant, slow simmering to get just right. Now that is some serious dedication to flavor.
All right, time for a major shift in thinking. In Section 4, we're exploring spreads that belong on the cheese board, not the breakfast table. These are complex, balanced condiments that totally bridge the gap between sweet, savory, and even spicy. Let's start with achar, which has this incredible history that stretches back over 4,000 years. It actually started in the Indian subcontinent as a really practical way to preserve fruit in oil and spices to get through the monsoon season. Today, it's a total staple, with just endless variations depending on what region you're in.
So let's quickly break down 3 other savory stars here. You've got chutney, which is all about balancing fruit and spices with a really sharp vinegar base. Then there's mostarda, this wild Italian specialty of candied fruit sitting in a syrup that gets a surprising, almost sinus-clearing kick from mustard. And gastrique is a classic French sauce that starts with caramelized sugar and is then deglazed with vinegar for this perfect sweet and sour balance.
And believe me, people take these traditions very seriously. For a truly authentic mostarda di Cremona, that's a protected specialty from Italy, the final jar has to contain at least 50% fruit by weight. It's a guarantee of quality and intensity. On to Section 5. Now we're looking at spreads that are defined not just by their ingredients, but by their really unique preservation methods. Everything from ancient sun-drying techniques all the way to the cutting-edge science of the modernist kitchen.
Fruit leather is a perfect example of this. This isn't some modern snack food. The technique was developed over 1,000 years ago by Native Americans. They would dry fruit puree in the sun to create this portable, long-lasting source of nutrition. So the preservation here comes from removing water, not from adding sugar. Pretty genius.
I mean, this category just shows the incredible range of preservation methods that go way beyond just sugar. You can cook a puree down into a firm, sliceable fruit paste, like Spanish membrillo. You can slowly evaporate juice into a super intense sugar-free reduction. You can gently poach fruit in sugar syrup or even fat to make a confit. Or you can just skip the heat entirely and use lacto-fermentation to create something tangy and packed with probiotics.
And that brings us to the modern era, which is such a fascinating contrast. While all those ancient methods relied on heat and sugar, modernist chefs like the legendary Ferran Adria started using things called hydrocolloids, like agar, to create gels with textures that were completely new. We're talking firm but delicate, or elastic jellies that were just not possible with pectin alone.
Okay, on to our final section, the world of liquid fruits. These are the coreable, the drizzleable, and even the drinkable preparations that are going to round out our grand tour.
So this final lineup pretty much covers everything you can pour. Some are super simple, like a compote, which is just lightly cooked fruit served fresh, or a basic fruit sauce. Others are a bit more complex, like a conserve. That's a mixed fruit jam that often has nuts in it. Then you have your classic syrup. But the most surprising one might be the shrub. It's this tart, refreshing drinking vinegar that actually has its roots in colonial America.
After all these technical definitions and all these meticulous details, it's worth taking a step back and remembering what this is all really about. As one source puts it so beautifully, every fruit is a canvas for endless creativity, waiting to be transformed into jars of pure, homemade joy.
Because ultimately, this knowledge isn't just trivia, right? It's a toolkit for your own kitchen, for your own pantry. Now that you can tell a confit from a conserve or a chutney from a mostarda, the real question is, which one are you going to explore next? Thanks for watching.